Alright, fellas, it's time to take a look at the final episode of the day, which is The Secret of Solitary Scribe. Nancy stands outside a closed flower shop, waiting for it to open so she can ask about the flowers found on the 1975 victims' graves. At the Claw, George tries to convince Nick to look at the new house, but he can't focus on anything but the Glaika. Bess can't believe that Ace is washing dishes near the cooler, but he can't go home as he and his father have been arguing. Bess thinks they should give the bones back to the Glaika to get rid of her. She found documents of cases where it worked. Ace worries that it won't work as Lucy's skull is missing. She thinks Tamora found it. Ace puts her in charge of talking to Hannah while he retrieves the skull. At the flower shop, Nancy asks for the information of the customer who bought the wreaths, but the owner, Lily, refuses to give her the information. Nancy has to look around while she texts Ace to try plan B. Ace calls the shop feigning a wedding emergency that gets Lily away from the computer. Nancy snoops on the tablet and finds a phone number. She calls and listens to Carson's voicemail. George clarifies that Carson sent the flowers to the 1975 victims every year for a decade, and there's no mention of AJ in the records. The only connection to the Glaika survivor is Carson, so Nancy has to meet him in the Claw to talk, with her friends monitoring. They sit up and Nancy skips the chit-chat and asks him why he sends flowers to the graves every year on the same day. Carson knows AJ as AJ Crane, the horror novelist. He helps his lawyer to arrange for the flower delivery. AJ is a total recluse and refuses to deal with the outside world. Carson refuses to give Nancy his address, but offers to take her there on a 2-hour car drive. They arrive at AJ's residence where Nancy removes her AirPods. AJ reluctantly opens the front gate, with Nancy noticing a strange figurine hanging above the doorway. Once inside, strange drawings cover the walls, and Nancy immediately asks about AJ's 5 dead friends. She pleads with them for answers as her 7 days are almost up, which Carson doesn't understand. AJ refuses to help her as she doesn't want what he has. He warns her that they are coming as wind gusts blow. He pushes them out of the house, but Nancy grabs the strange figurine before running off. AJ covers his ears with headphones as he falls to the ground. After a few moments, the shrieking and wailing stop as he looks out the window. Nancy visits the Historical Society with the talisman just as Bess enters. Nancy fills her in on finding AJ Crane, who Bess is a fan of. Hannah promises to check the records for the talisman, but Bess brings up returning the bones instead. Nancy refuses even though everyone else wants to try it. Tamora leaves the police station as Ace enters with a basket of bread for Fred, who isn't on desk duty anymore. Ace brings up the human skull, but the new officer doesn't know what Ace is talking about. Ace sneaks into Tamora's office to look for the skull, finding inside a tin. He steals it back and skips the situation until he runs into his father, Tom. Tom has returned to work, much to Ace's chagrin, as Tom was supposed to be retired. Tom wants him to come to the Shabbat dinner, but Ace blows it off as he has plans. Tom offers next Friday instead, but Ace changes his mind to go tonight. George tries to find Nick a nice shirt to look for Elise as she doesn't want to focus on the Glaika. She doesn't want them to be a part of they're going to die in 3 days. They worry about what they will miss as a couple. They kiss, but Nancy walks in before things get too heated, so the couple nervously leaves. Carson gets a call from AJ, who is angry that the talisman is missing as hell is coming for Nancy now. He hangs up before explaining. At the Drew house, Nancy tries to research the talisman, but a soft breeze blows through her room. Hannah calls Nancy to warn her to get rid of the talisman, as it's the mark of the Bahoot. It attracts malevolent spirits and draws the most vicious and evil spirits in the area to the holder. Hannah reaches by Nancy grabs her, but when she turns, just as fans are reaching out to her. She runs downstairs as AJ grabs her, places her under a table, and tells her to cover her ears. He's dragged away seconds later as glass shatters. When it passes, she checks him before he can tell her anything. Detective Tamora and the police arrive to arrest AJ for trespassing, per Carson's request. Nancy sits outside a grocery store where she sees Ryan getting groceries for Lucy's mom, Patrice. He's been visiting her as she is alone. Nancy needs a favor which she is surprised by, but she brings up all the times she didn't ask him for a favor growing up, so he gives in. She asks him to help her get AJ freed. In prison, AJ is panting and requests a lawyer. He hears breathing behind him moments before the Igleka screams at him. Nancy approaches the talisman and returns it, apologizing for taking it. Ace comes home to celebrate Shabbat, but promises Bess he'll be back for low tide. Tamora is visiting for the dinner, much to Ace's surprise. Tom explains that Tamora is also Jewish, but didn't have anyone to celebrate with as he's new to town. Tamora slightly mentions Bones, but Tom was oblivious. Ace thinks Tamora is lying about his heritage and asks him to stay the motzi. Tamora is happy to try and succeeds, but Ace just wants to eat. At the jail, AJ explains that there were 6 stupid teens in the car and Mac was driving fast to scare Rita. They hit a station wagon that burst into flames. Their driver and his wife were both killed, but they pulled a 3-year-old girl out of the wreckage. They felt compelled to do something and asked the Igleka to ensure that the girl lived. They couldn't pay the toll. The girl was released from the burning and adopted by the couple who ran the Historical Society. Nancy realizes that the girl was Hannah Gruen. 7 days later, the 5 friends were dead. AJ found the talisman in New Orleans to track the malevolent spirits to help keep the Igleka away. Every day for 45 years, the spirits come in waves to inflict pain and anguish on him. He tells her to try anything that will work, though returning what he asks for isn't an option. The spirits approach AJ and makes Nancy leave. She calls Bess to tell her she's in and will give the bones back. Nick and George return to his hotel room and he worries the condition of it isn't good enough. She thinks it's perfect since they're together. They fall into the bed, but George is haunted by memories of them dying in Nick's car. She only thinks about what's waiting for them in the truck, and he admits to also being plagued by the thought of it. At Ace's, Timur confronts Ace about taking the skull. He tries to lie, but Timur knows better. He becomes annoyed and demands an answer from Ace. Tom enters and asks what's going on, to which Timur tells him everything, including how the skull went missing. Ace pretends that this is a shock, though Timur is barely convinced. He threatens to search the house, but Tom refuses and tells him to get a warrant. Timur thanks Tom for dinner and leaves. When he's gone, Ace tells Tom that he didn't do anything wrong, but they are in trouble. He's going to fix it right now. Tom gives him his blessing, though makes a promise to tell him everything tonight. The Drew crew and Nancy place the bones at the edge of the sea, Nancy apologizing to Lucy for not giving her a better burial. Bess comforts Nancy as Lucy is saving her life. Nancy calls to the Igleka, asking her to take back the bones in exchange for forgiving their debt. Nothing happens, so Nancy slices her palm and bleeds into the water, and repeats her request for forgiveness. The Igleka takes the bones back just as Timur calls, asking how AJ escaped. Bess knows how he escaped as she's read his book and the police work to stop AJ. Nancy says AJ is going to return what he asked for, Hannah Gruen's life. Nancy and the Drew crew try to find Hannah, but Bess and George don't have any luck. Nancy hears Hannah's phone ringing on the ground and follows the trail to the garage where AJ is about to kill Hannah in a car fire. Nancy tries to reason with him that he isn't a monster but a survivor, asking for the matches he's holding. He hands them over as the Drew crew. He gives them over as the Drew crew runs over to help Hannah and they call 911. AJ, however, leaves without his talisman. He decides to let the Igleka come for him. Nancy and Drew crew return to the cloud to celebrate as they hope they've beaten the Igleka. They go inside to find Lucy's bones covering the floor, but is eerily noting that the Igleka doesn't have a return policy. They clean up the diner while Bess apologizes to Nancy for using Lucy's bones as a sacrifice. Nancy's just grateful that they have the bones back, but she's still confident they can beat the Igleka. Ace tells them to check their phones, as the national story has broken that AJ Crane has died after an amateur weather vane fell from a rooftop and impaled him. Bess early knows that AJ's latest book cover showed his character being impaled by a weather vane. Nick offers to walk George home, but she suggests that they go in the truck instead. She doesn't care if they die anymore, and she's tired of being afraid. Next morning, Nancy remembers AJ's words to her about being stuck with his demons. She visits Carson to accompany her to say goodbye to Lucy. He agrees, and they venture into the woods since Lucy's tombstone in the cemetery gets vandalized every year. She thinks Lucy wanted her bones buried somewhere else. She decides on Sylvan Woods, as Lucy wrote about loving the area in her journal. Carson suggests inviting Ryan, but Nancy smiles as she already has. Together, The men dig a grave while Nancy traces Lucy's previously engraved symbols on a tree. Bess and Ace wake Nick and George, who are asleep in the truck. Nancy and the Druker bury the talisman in AJ's place, but before they leave, they decide to go inside to retrieve AJ's notes on defeating the Igleika. Ace finds an unfinished die book box, which he explains can be used to trap spirits and might work on the Igleika. A gust of wind blows as Nancy warns that the spirits are coming, so they grab everything they can before leaving. As he runs through the car, the Igleika eerily watches them from the trees. Dun dun dun. So overall, I think this is a pretty darn good episode, and yeah, looks like the Drew crew are finally getting close to dealing with the Igleika, hopefully, so yeah. So overall, I give The Secret of Solitary Scribe 4 Deer Stalkers out of 5. Anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take the next episode, The Fate of the Buried Treasure. So until then, remember everyone, the game's afoot.